Alright, I'm going to try and put on the next round of highlights on this Arbites, or however you say it. I'm starting to realize that I have one width of highlight. I just basically have chunky highlights. I've been working off camera on several places on this model, painting and repainting, trying different times of the day when my hands are less shaky and my eyesight doesn't seem to be quite as bad. And I've realized that I think I'm limited to just, okay, there's a width that I can do, and that's about as fine as it goes, no matter what brush I use or whatever. So in my quest to learn to paint minis better, I think I'm going to have to figure out how do I capitalize on doing it within the limitations that I seem to have. Now I know that if I do it more, in theory, I should get better. I've seen that in all my modeling. I used to not be able to do very well when it came to airbrushing, and then I airbrushed several hundred models, and I got a little better at it. But I don't know that I'm willing to put in the time on minis, because I really like doing the vehicles. This is kind of more of a side project. So anyway, we'll see. I'm enjoying doing this. That's the main thing. It's storming here. There's a pretty bad storm outside, so if you hear some thunder and lightning, is this in focus? I have no idea. I've got the camera at an angle where I can't even see it, so I put this piece of white paper behind it, hoping that it'll help the camera focus better on the model. I'm trying to keep the model in the middle. Model in the middle. Hey, there's some alliteration. But to get these highlights on here, I'd gone one more level of highlight. I'd gone from the chunky highlight that was darker to whatever the next color was that I used in the last video. I've already forgotten. And that's when I discovered that I seem to have one width of highlight. So I'm trying to get these a little tighter, but I've actually probably done about half the model now off camera, and I'm just seeing that there's just, I guess sometimes there's just only so much you can do. I've got an optivisor that is as magnified as I can stand without it giving me headaches after just a few minutes. Somebody was asking me about that. They said, well, could you go up on your optivisor? I wish I could. That might help. But, all right, well, I guess what I can do is I can go back, once I get the other parts painted, I can go back and put in some spot highlights on the highest parts, and maybe that'll help sell the notion of highlights a little bit. I'm not unhappy with this. I mean, it looks like an Arbites. But yeah, I'm learning from it. That's the main thing. I'm going to go on and start base painting some of the other parts. Underneath his armor, there appears to be this cloth suit, some kind of garment. It's not armored. It's some kind of fabric or cloth, or I don't know, some kind of future space material that they use only in the 40th millennium, 41st, I guess you'd say, or is the 41st century? I never can remember. I'm not good at math. I'm going to use Vallejo Black Gray for this. I figured what I can do is I can highlight this, make this a little lighter so that it appears to be a little different in terms of material, and use grays to highlight it. so that it looks a little different from the armor, which I'm highlighting with more bluish colors, and just make it stand out a little bit. So let me get all this base coated, and we'll see what color I pick next. Alright, now I'm going to paint the leather parts. I'm going to start off basing these with dryad bark. For the longest time I had used rhinox hide and that kind of triad from Games Workshop from Citadel. I like it, but I started realizing, I need to vary that from time to time, because there's obviously different colors of leather, because there's different colors of cows. But so I'm gonna, I don't remember, I've seen several people use this, but there was somebody I was watching recently that used dryad bark as the basis for their leather, and then they went to, let me look at my paints, Mournfang Brown and XV88, so that's what I'm going to be doing. See how that looks. Again, being very optimistic that I can actually use 3 colors and have them be seen distinctly. So, but I've got to find some way to do it. If I'm going to paint stuff. There's a buckle there that I missed. Oh well, I'll have to go back and do that. But today I'm doing something that I don't often do, and that's use a wet palette. There's a couple of reasons I don't use a wet palette very often. One, in the mornings when I model before I go to work, I've actually only got about 30 minutes working time. I get up, take a shower, get my coffee. Get up at 4:30, take a shower, get my coffee. By the time I get out here, it's 5 o'clock, and into my man cave. And I have to pretty much wrap up everything I'm doing by 5:45 so that I can go make breakfast, go say good morning to my wife, because she'll be getting up around 5:45. Then eat breakfast, get dressed, all that stuff, and then head off to work at 6:50 or so. So day to day, setting up a wet palette just isn't practical. And I personally, and I've heard a few creators say this, that's a myth that on a regular basis you just, set up your wet palette and then put the lid on, put it in the fridge, and come back and everything's just perfectly ready to go. I tried that a couple of times and I'm like, really? Who are they kidding? And I've talked to a few guys, and I mean, some people, I don't doubt them when they say, no, it's worked for me, but I've never been able to get it to work. The other reason I don't use wet palettes very often is I can't make them work right. I've tried every way to set it up, and it always ends up being, those memes you see that it shows, on one side it shows a picture of this is how it looked on Pinterest. Here's the cookies on Pinterest, and then here's my version of them. Every time I use a wet palette, it could be a Pinterest fail meme. Although I did find out, right now I'm using a Masterson wet palette, which a lot of people recommend. I've used homemade ones. I've used one from Army Painter. Use several different kinds. I'm liking this Masterson one better, but I'm still not completely comfortable with it. But one thing, just before I was doing this, that I was watching a video. I'd already had it set up, so I didn't go back and try and change it, because, again, I've only got a limited amount of time. This is Saturday afternoon, and I got to get things painted, get some painting done, do some video editing, and then my wife and daughter will come back from grocery shopping, and I got to help them put up groceries. And then nap. Can't miss my Saturday afternoon nap. But anyway, this person, I don't remember who it was, but they mentioned that the paper that comes with the Masterson palettes are too thick for the types of acrylics that we use. They're meant for, according to this person, they're meant for the heavy-bodied acrylics like proper Bob Ross style artists use. And so he recommended just using some parchment paper. So the next time I set this puppy up, I may do that. Try a piece of parchment paper. But I never can find the right combination. And it may be, it may be that the paper is the problem. The right combination of too much water in the palette, in the pad underneath it, too little, too much on the surface. I have no idea if I'm in focus. I apologize for that. I'm just rambling. Too much or too little water on the surface of it. There's times when I think I get it set up right, and then all of a sudden, 15 minutes later, all of my paints are just completely bleeding all over the surface of the wet palette. And I realize, okay, it's too wet. Now, I actually think I've got them close to being pretty good. You can see it right there. It's working pretty good. Although I have noticed that the papers for these, the papers tend to expand, it seems like, when they're put on there. They start curling up around the edges, which causes problems. But I'm still working on it. I don't feel too bad, because if you go back and watch like any of the older Sarastro videos, he never used a wet palette and he got pretty good results. So I mean, I don't feel like, I don't kid myself. I don't kid myself that if I suddenly, get better at using a wet palette, that all of a sudden I'm going to be able to paint these super precise lines, and, my subs will go up over 100,000, and I'll do a video that says, I quit my job. Ha 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 ha. I really doubt that's ever going to happen. In fact, I'm pretty much banking on it, so I'm not even worried about it anymore. I do videos. If anybody watches them, cool. If not, I've had to admit that video making is a hobby for me. Whoops, too much paint. Video making is a hobby for me. And I guess I've had to admit that because I've failed as a creator. So you got to, do whatever it takes to help you sleep at night. But I've just decided, you know what? I'm going to quit chasing the numbers. Quit chasing all of that. Quit looking around the corner and saying, okay, hopefully maybe this video will be the one that blows up. I'm just going to put them out there, see what happens. And what is gratifying, and this don't make any money, but I guess that's just the thing. But what is gratifying is at least 10 times a day, somebody watches one of my videos, old, new, whatever, and says, wow, this really helped me. And there's a certain, it makes me feel good, because at the core, that's what I like doing, is trying to be helpful. I don't know that much, but I'll tell you everything I do know, which really ain't a lot, but I'll be helpful where I can. All right, I think I got that first layer on. Let me go do the other parts now. Now, I just noticed in my reference photo that the gun casing for this is red, which I like. So I want to use one of the new Formula Vallejo Game Color paints to base this. This is Nocturnal Red. And first time I've used it, I think it's the first time. I may have used it one other time. I don't remember. My memory's not very good. But I'm really liking these new Vallejo Game Color paints. This new formula. I had used Game Color in the past. I didn't dislike it, certainly. but for some very just, sometimes you like something not because it's hugely better, but there's just some features of it that you like better. And so I really enjoyed Citadel paints. But the more I'm using this new Formula Game Color, the more I'm thinking next time I need a Citadel color, I may find the equivalent in Game Color and just see how that feels. Because I'm really, really liking them. And the fact that they dry very matte is very cool. Now I'm going to use another Vallejo Game Color reformulated paint. Talked about this one before, Chainmail. And my opinion of it, it's awesome. And I'm really liking it. I think it's become my new favorite just for basic silver. It's really smooth. I like it better than Lead Belcher, and I loved me some Lead Belcher. I'm not going to throw my Lead Belcher away. I'll still use it. But this stuff is really good. And as I think I've mentioned, the fact that it's as good, or like in this case, I think better than Citadel paints and half the price, that's important. So, yeah, but there's lots of metallic parts. I like to base when I'm doing metallic parts. Is this in focus? Can't tell. It's having a hard time focusing on just these black against white things. But even if I'm not going to paint something, if it's not going to end up being silver, I like putting silver underneath it as the base, because I think it just helps whatever metallics go over the top to look better. It also gives me the option to use various contrast paints so that it has a metallic shine, but it's not quite so bright like a metallic would be. So I'm really, really liking this stuff. And like I've said, it dries matte. And I like that. I much prefer my paints to be matte than to be the word slipping me, not matte. Satin or gloss. That's it. I'm thinking I need my nap now. All right, well, I'll call this a video. Got a few more colors on than I did in the first video. And let me know. I mean, if you don't like this format of me just kind of talking and rambling and just kind of working along, saying whatever's on my mind, I don't want to do stuff that you guys don't really, have no interest in. I mean, I'll still paint stuff like this. I just may show fewer bits and pieces of it and do it more like a traditional video if that's what y'all want. But just let me know. But anyway, I'm pleased with how this is progressing. I mean, it's not bad. I guess in terms of if somebody had this and they played a game with it, people would be like, oh, that's not awful. So I'm happy with how it's turning out, and I'm having fun with it. I like these characters, and I mean that helmet is just so over the top. Let me get the light on it a little better. That helmet is just so over the top, Mr. Shouty. Everybody in Warhammer must be singing, "I see a little silhouette of a man," So I think I've made that joke before. I probably need to find another joke. Anyway. I'll say, as I always do, thank you for being a patron, and I'm really grateful. It's a blessing to me and my family, and I do appreciate it. So, as I always like to do, Well, you know what I always say. I always say if you're not having fun, you're doing it wrong. You guys know that. But what I will say is, happy day to you, friends. Bye-bye.